I donated my wedding dress to a church charity. A month later, I saw who put it on, and the world stopped for me. The attic smelled faintly of cedar and mothballs, the kind of scent that clings to old years, refusing to leave. I climbed the narrow staircase slowly, one hand pressed against my knee for balance, the other gripping the rail polished by decades of touch. Dust floated in the slant of afternoon light, dancing lazily like it had nowhere else to be. I hadn't been up here in months, maybe years. Most of the boxes were marked in my late husband's handwriting: Christmas lights, baby clothes, college books. Some had been packed away so long, the ink had faded into pale gray scratches. I brushed past them until I reached the far corner. There it was. A long garment bag, yellowed at the edges, still zipped shut. My wedding dress. For a long moment, I didn't move. I just stared at it, remembering the last time I'd held it in my hands. I had been 22, giddy with nerves, my mother fussing with the veil while my father pretended not to cry. The dress wasn't grand, lace sleeves, a modest skirt. But when I stepped into it that morning, I had believed I was stepping into forever. Forever lasted 28 years. Then came the accident and the silence after. I never put the dress on again. I crouched and lifted the bag, surprised at how heavy it felt. As I unzipped it, the fabric fell forward like it was exhaling after years of holding its breath. The lace was yellowed in places, but still intact. The beading caught the light like tiny, frozen tears. I pressed the fabric to my cheek. It smelled faintly of dust and lavender sachets. And memory. Always memory. There had been nights I'd thought about selling it. Others when I considered cutting it into smaller pieces, sewing it into a quilt for my grandchildren. But something always stopped me. It felt wrong to reduce it, wrong to let it go. Until now. The decision had come quietly that morning, over coffee at the kitchen table. I was tired of keeping pieces of a past I couldn't change. Tired of letting my attic become a museum of what was. At church last Sunday, they'd announced a charity drive for families in need, clothing donations especially. That's when it clicked. Maybe it was time. Maybe someone else could wear this dress, not as a monument to what I'd lost, but as a beginning to what they hoped for. I folded the fabric carefully, tucking it back into the garment bag. My hands trembled, but not from regret, from release. When I carried it down the stairs, the house seemed strangely lighter, as if even the walls approved. Tomorrow, I decided, I would take it to the church. Tomorrow, I would let it go. The garment bag hung by the front door all evening, like a quiet guest waiting to leave. Every time I passed it, my eyes lingered, not with hesitation, but with the strange ache of goodbye. I called my daughter after dinner, more out of habit than anything else. "I'm donating my wedding dress tomorrow," I told her, trying to sound casual. There was a pause on the line, followed by a short laugh. "Mom? Really? Who would want that old thing?" Her words landed heavier than I expected. "Someone will," I said firmly. "It's still beautiful." Beautiful maybe, but it's 50 years old. Styles change. People want strapless gowns and glittery skirts now, not sleeves and lace. I pressed my lips together, watching the bag sway slightly in the hallway draft. "It's not about the style. It's about what it might mean to someone." She sighed. "If it makes you happy, then fine. But don't be disappointed when they toss it on the reject pile." We spoke of other things after that, her work, the children, the groceries she forgot to pick up. But the dress was all I heard in my mind, her laughter echoing like a small crack in the wall of my certainty. Later that evening, my neighbor Kay dropped by with a bowl of lentil soup. Her eyes fell on the garment bag immediately. "Is that?" I nodded. "Tomorrow it goes to the church." She set the soup on the counter and reached for my hand. "That's brave," she said softly. "Brave?" I laughed, though it came out more brittle than I intended. She nodded. "Some people clutch their memories so tightly they suffocate." You're giving yours a second life." Her words steadied me more than she knew. After she left, I sat in the living room with the dress beside me, the house quiet except for the steady tick of the clock. I thought of all the weddings I had attended over the years. Some couples lasted, others crumbled. Dresses yellowed in attics, or disappeared into thrift stores, or were passed down until the seams gave out. But mine had waited for this, for a moment when I could finally unclench my hands and let it fly. Before bed, I knelt beside the garment bag and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for carrying me through a day I once thought would last forever. Thank you for reminding me of love, even when love was gone. Tomorrow it would belong to someone else, and maybe, just maybe, that was the closest thing to forever a dress could offer." The morning air was sharp with the promise of rain. I carried the garment bag carefully, as though it might crumble if I moved too quickly. The church was only 6 blocks away, and though Kay had offered me a ride, I wanted to walk. It felt important, almost ceremonial, to take each step myself. By the time I reached the parish hall, the tables were already lined with donations: coats, shoes, boxes of canned food. A few volunteers bustled around, sorting piles into neat stacks. At the far end, a cardboard sign read, "Wedding in Formal Wear." A young woman with a clipboard greeted me at the door. "Good morning. Are you here to donate?" "Yes," I said, holding up the bag. "It's my wedding dress." Her eyes flicked toward the garment bag, polite but distracted. "Just place it on the rack with the others, ma'am." "Thank you for your generosity," that was all. No questions, no glance inside. Just a nod before she moved on to the next person. I walked to the rack and unzipped the bag halfway, letting the lace peek out. Another volunteer, an older man with kind eyes, caught sight of it. "Well now," he said softly, "that looks like something special." "It was," I replied, my throat tightening. He leaned in a little closer. "Someone's going to feel beautiful in that." "You've given a gift that's more than fabric." I swallowed hard, grateful for the words. As I turned to leave, a voice behind me called, "Is that a wedding gown?" I looked back to see a young woman, barely more than a girl, eyeing the rack with wide eyes. She clutched a toddler on her hip, her face tired but glowing with hope. "Yes," I said gently. "It is." The volunteer told her the gowns would be sorted and made available later in the week. The young woman nodded, rocking the child against her shoulder. But her eyes lingered on the lace as if it were already hers. For the first time that morning, I felt something unclench inside me. Maybe my daughter was wrong. Maybe someone would want it. Maybe it could still hold meaning beyond what it had given me. I left the hall quietly, the empty garment bag folded over my arm. The walk home felt lighter, though the sky had grown darker with clouds. When I stepped into my kitchen, the clock ticked exactly 12 noon, and the house seemed to exhale. It was done. The dress was gone. I told myself not to wonder where it would go, who would wear it, or what life it might live after me. But deep down, a small voice whispered that I hadn't seen the last of it. Not yet. A month slipped by quietly, the kind of month where the days blended into one another. Chores, errands, phone calls with my daughter, Kay's visits with soup or bread. The dress drifted from my mind, tucked away in that rack at the parish hall, destined, I told myself, for some stranger's happiness. Then, one Sunday, Father Mark announced a special service. "We'll be celebrating the success of our charity drive," he said warmly. "Many of the donated clothes have already found new homes. Come join us after Mass for fellowship and refreshments. Kay insisted we go together." "It'll be good for you," she said. "We never know how our gifts ripple out." So I went, dressed in my navy coat, hair brushed neat. The church was full, its stained glass windows glowing with the late morning light. Families crowded the pews, children squirming, voices rising in hymns that swelled like ocean waves. Afterward, we shuffled into the parish hall, tables heavy with cookies, casseroles, and coffee urns. People mingled, laughing, sharing stories of how donations had helped them. The air hummed with gratitude, a warmth that wrapped around everyone. I stood by the punch bowl, chatting with Kay, when the room seemed to shift. A hush, subtle but unmistakable, spread through the crowd. People turned their heads toward the doorway. I followed their gaze, and the world stopped. There she was, a young woman, tall and poised, stepping into the hall with a calm confidence that made others instinctively move aside. And she was wearing it, my dress. The lace sleeves, the modest skirt, the beading that caught the light, restored, pressed, and alive again on another body. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Kay's voice faded to a hum. My ears roared with the rush of blood. All I could see was the dress, moving through the crowd, its fabric brushing past shoulders and tables, the hem gliding just above the floor. The woman smiled politely as people complimented her, thanking the church for its generosity. She laughed softly, the sound sharp against my ribs. It wasn't just that she wore my dress, it was who she was. Her face was unmistakable, familiar in a way that turned my stomach. A face I had glimpsed years ago in whispers and suspicions, always on the edges of my marriage. The woman my husband once swore I had imagined. The one he said never existed. She was real. She was here. And she was standing in my wedding dress. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself, the punch bowl trembling under my hand. Kay's voice finally cut through the fog. "Are you all right?" But I wasn't, because in that moment, all the years of denial, doubt, and pain condensed into one unbearable truth. The past I had tried to bury had returned, and it was walking toward me in lace. She crossed the room with the grace of someone who knew she was being watched. The dress seemed to transform her, giving her a strange authority, as if it belonged to her more than it had ever belonged to me. I couldn't move. My hand clutched the edge of the table until my knuckles whitened. Kay whispered something beside me, but the words dissolved into the ringing in my ears. The woman accepted a cup of coffee from one of the volunteers, her laughter carrying lightly over the chatter. It was the same laugh I remembered from years ago, though then it had come muffled through walls or phone lines, or whispered at the edges of suspicion. My husband's late nights at the office, the unexplained receipts, the tension in his eyes when I asked too many questions. And when I confronted him, he had shaken his head, kissed my hands, and told me I was imagining things. "You're tired," he'd said. "You worry too much." I had wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. So I buried my doubts, packed them away like I had packed the dress. But now here she was, flesh and bone and silk and lace. Kay followed my gaze, then frowned. "Do you know her?" I swallowed hard. "Yes," I whispered, though the words scraped my throat raw. "I know her." The woman finally noticed me. Her eyes lingered on mine for a fraction too long, recognition flickering like a candle flame. Her smile didn't falter, but something sharpened in it, a quiet acknowledgement, a secret shared between us that no one else in the room could see. I turned away quickly, my stomach twisting. I needed air, but the hall was too crowded, the walls too close. I pushed past a group of teenagers, the hem of the dress brushing against me as she moved past. The fabric felt colder than it should have. In the bathroom mirror, I saw my own face pale, my lips pressed thin. Kay came in behind me, her brow furrowed. "Who is she?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "Not here. Not now. Because how could I explain? How could I drag old ghosts into the light of this church hall, where people were eating cookies and praising generosity? But deep inside, the certainty had already rooted itself. This wasn't chance. She hadn't just stumbled across the dress. She wanted me to see it. She wanted me to know. And she had chosen my wedding dress, the one symbol I had guarded for half a century, as her weapon. I splashed cold water on my face, but it did nothing to dull the burning in my chest. The past wasn't done with me. It had come back, draped in lace, demanding to be faced. I waited until the crowd thinned, watching her glide between conversations as though she belonged in every circle. My pulse hammered, my palms damp, but the longer I stayed silent, the more the weight pressed down. Finally, I stepped forward. She noticed me immediately. Her smile didn't falter. If anything, it grew sharper. She shifted her coffee cup to her left hand, leaving her right free, as though she expected me to offer mine. "I see you found something special at the drive," I said, keeping my voice steady. Her eyes glittered. "Oh, this?" She glanced down, running her fingers over the lace sleeve. "Yes. Can you believe someone gave it away? Practically brand new." The words hit like a blade. Practically brand new. My wedding, my vows, my entire past life, dismissed as if it were a yard sale trinket. "It was mine," I said quietly. For a split second, her smile faltered. Then she tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Yours? Really?" "Yes," I whispered. "I wore it on my wedding day." She sipped her coffee, her gaze never leaving mine. "Well," she said at last, "it looks just as lovely now, doesn't it?" Something inside me twisted. The room around us blurred, voices fading into a dull hum. She knew. I could see it in the way she lingered on each word, the way she savored the sting. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice breaking despite myself. "Why this church? Why this dress?" Her lips curved into a smile that wasn't kind. "Because it suits me." She brushed past me then, her shoulder grazing mine, leaving the faint scent of her perfume, a fragrance I recognized too well. The same perfume I'd smelled on my husband's coat once, years ago, when he returned from one of his so-called late nights. I stood frozen, every nerve raw. She didn't deny it. She didn't need to. Kay appeared at my side, eyes narrowed. "What did she say?" "Nothing," I murmured, though it was a lie. She had said everything without saying anything at all. The woman moved toward the exit, her back straight, her hand resting lightly on the skirt of the dress as though it were her crown. She didn't look back, but I knew she would return. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a message, a reminder that the truth I had buried under years of denial was still alive, waiting. And now it wore lace. That evening, the house felt colder than usual. I made tea, but forgot to drink it, the steam vanishing as quickly as my composure. I tried reading, tried listening to the radio, but her face, her voice, that smug curve of her smile, all of it replayed endlessly. By the time my daughter called to check in, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "You won't believe what happened at church today," I began, my voice tighter than I intended. "What now?" she asked lightly, distracted, as though she were cooking or scrolling through her phone. "I saw her." "The woman your father—" My throat closed, but I forced the words out. "The one I always suspected." She was there, wearing my wedding dress. Silence. Then a short laugh. "Mom, that's impossible. You've been saying things like this for years. Dad wasn't—" "I'm telling you, it was her." I recognized her. She looked at me like she knew, like she wanted me to know. "Or maybe," my daughter interrupted, her tone sharpening, "you're seeing what you want to see. You gave away the dress, didn't you? So what if some woman picked it up? That doesn't mean she was involved with Dad 30 years ago." "It wasn't just any woman," I whispered. "Mom." Her voice was firm now, almost irritated. "You're obsessing again. Dad is gone. The past is gone. You can't keep digging it up. It's not healthy." I felt the words like stones, heavy and crushing. "So, you don't believe me? I believe you saw a woman in a dress. That's all. Please, don't turn this into another ghost hunt. I don't have the energy for it." The call ended shortly after. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in my lap, staring at the silent, dark window. Later, when my son called to say hello, I tried again, softer this time. "I think I saw someone today. Someone from the past." She was wearing my dress. He sighed heavily. Mom, you've been under stress. Maybe it's time to focus on what's ahead instead of what's behind. Dad's mistakes, real or imagined, don't matter anymore. But they did matter. They mattered because I had lived them, endured them, been told I was wrong until I doubted my own memory. And now, here was proof standing in front of me in lace. Yet to my children, it was nothing. Just another story from their aging mother, filed away as exaggeration. When the calls ended, the house fell silent again, except for the tick of the old clock in the hallway. I wrapped my arms around myself, a chill running deep into my bones. I wasn't crazy. I knew what I saw, but I also knew I was alone in it. The next morning, I woke with a pounding in my temples, the kind that comes after too many hours of thinking without sleep. Light from the kitchen window fell across the table where my phone lay, dark and still. Both my children had dismissed me the night before. The memories stung like a burn. I wasn't going to let it end there. I started small. After church, I lingered in the parking lot, pretending to search for my keys. Kay spotted me and came over, her handbag clutched tight against her hip. "You look pale," she said. "Are you feeling all right?" "I saw her again yesterday," I murmured, keeping my eyes on the pavement. Kay's brows rose. "Who?" "The woman." "In my dress," she exhaled slowly. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." I swallowed. She didn't just show up out of nowhere. This is deliberate. I know it. Kay glanced back toward the church door. "I've seen her too, you know." "New volunteer, started a few weeks ago. She's confident. Acts like she owns the place. Do you know her name?" Kay shook her head. "People are calling her Miss Claire, but that's all I've heard." The name clawed at something in my memory. Claire. My husband had once mentioned a Claire from work, years ago, during a fight I barely remembered. I thanked Kay and walked to my car, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. This wasn't just a ghost from my imagination. There were threads connecting her to my past, and they were starting to tighten. That afternoon, I took the long way home, past the old office building where my husband used to work. The sign had changed, but the structure was the same. My stomach twisted. How many lies had been built under that roof? At home, I opened my photo boxes, dusty containers of birthdays, graduations, Christmases. In one, at the bottom, I found a snapshot from a company party. My husband, younger, laughing with his arm around a slim blonde woman. The back of the photo read, "Company Gala, 1992, Claire." My breath caught. The same high cheekbones, the same smile. It couldn't be a coincidence. That night I texted Kay. "If she comes again next Sunday, can you take a photo? Don't be obvious. I need proof." Kay replied within minutes. "I'll try. But be careful. You look like you're walking on glass." She was right. Every move felt like it could shatter something. I set the photo of my husband and Claire on the kitchen table. Underneath it, the lace of my wedding dress had once brushed against my skin. Now it brushed against hers. I wasn't just imagining it, and I was going to find out why. Sunday came heavy with rain. I woke before dawn, my stomach tight as a knot. I brewed coffee, but the smell turned sour in my throat. All week I'd been thinking about her, about that photo, about the way my children's voices had hardened when I'd tried to tell them. Today, I told myself, I would stop feeling like prey. I arrived at church early and sat in the back pew, my coat pulled tight, Kay beside me. She'd brought an old camera from her husband's drawer, the kind that didn't make a sound when it snapped. "She'll come," Kay murmured. "People like her always come back to be seen." And she was right. 10 minutes before the service began, the doors opened. Claire walked in like she owned the air, the dress pressed and gleaming even under the dull morning light. She smiled at the greeter, shook hands, laughed softly at some comment. Every move deliberate, every glance a test. I lowered my head and prayed for calm, but my pulse drummed in my ears. Kay raised the camera slowly, pretending to check her bag. 2 quick clicks. Claire didn't notice. When the hymns began, I didn't sing. I watched. She sat 3 rows ahead, 1 seat to the left. Her hair gleamed damp from the rain, her shoulders squared, her back straight. She didn't bow her head during prayer. She didn't close her eyes. It felt like a performance meant for me. After the service, people spilled into the foyer for coffee and cookies. I stayed seated until the crowd thinned, then rose. Kay slipped the camera into her coat pocket. "She's talking to Father Michael," she whispered. "Act normal." I walked slowly toward the exit. Claire's eyes flicked to me, a small smirk ghosting across her lips before she turned back to the priest. Outside, under the awning, Kay handed me the camera. "Got her," she said. I exhaled shakily. "Thank you." "What's next?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I'm done doubting myself." Back at home, I uploaded the photos to my laptop. They were clear, her face, the dress, the same high cheekbones from the 1992 photo. I placed them side by side on the screen, past and present staring back at me. My children couldn't dismiss this as imagination. But part of me still wondered, why now? Why this dress? Why appear in my life after all these years, wearing the one thing that still connected me to a day when I believed in vows? That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house felt like footsteps. She was baiting me, and for the first time in decades, I felt the old fight rising back inside me. I didn't plan the confrontation. It happened because I couldn't stand the silence anymore. On Wednesday afternoon, I went to the corner market for bread and milk, and there she was, Claire. Standing by the produce, her hand lingering over the apples, her expression serene, as though she hadn't just ripped open the seams of my life. I froze. She looked up, and the moment her eyes locked on mine, she smiled. Not the polite smile you give a stranger in passing, a knowing one. "You shop here too," she said, her voice smooth, casual, as if we were old acquaintances running into each other after years apart. I gripped the cart handle until my knuckles whitened. "Why are you here?" She tilted her head. Such a big question for such a small town. "I go where I please." "You're wearing my wedding dress," I hissed. Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "Your wedding dress? You gave it away, didn't you? Donated it. That means it's no longer yours." The words stung, but I held her gaze. "You knew it was mine. You wanted me to see it." She leaned closer, her perfume flooding the space between us. The same scent from my husband's coat decades ago. "Maybe I did." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay steady. "Why now?" "After all these years?" Her smile thinned. "Because some debts take time to collect." I blinked. "Debts?" "You lived in your perfect house with your perfect children, playing the perfect wife," she said softly, almost kindly, "while I was left with scraps. Do you know what it's like to be the shadow?" The edges of my vision blurred. "What are you talking about?" "You were his wife," she continued, her voice a whisper, sharp as glass. "But you were never his only." I stepped back, breath shallow. For years I had suspected, doubted, swallowed excuses. And here she was, confirming it with a smile. "Why wear the dress?" I managed. "Because it fits." She plucked an apple from the pile, turned it in her hand, and placed it in her basket. "And because I wanted you to remember." She brushed past me, her shoulder grazing mine, leaving the scent of betrayal trailing behind. I stood rooted, my chest tight, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. It wasn't just about the dress. It was about the life I thought I had, the years I convinced myself I'd imagined things, the children who told me to let it go. But Claire hadn't let it go, and now neither could I. The following Sunday, the church buzzed louder than usual. Some fundraiser had drawn nearly everyone from town. Tables lined the hall with casseroles and pies, chatter filling the air. I almost didn't go. My hands shook as I buttoned my coat, but something inside me whispered that I couldn't stay quiet anymore. When I walked in, Claire was already there, dressed in my gown again. This time she had added a pearl brooch to the bodice, as if she were marking her ownership. She floated from group to group, her laughter high, confident, as though she had earned the right to stand in the center of everything. Kay nudged me gently. "You ready?" I wasn't, but I nodded. When Father Michael called for a moment of thanks before the meal, the room quieted. Claire stood near the front, her hand resting on the skirt, her chin lifted. That was when I stepped forward. "Before we pray," I said, my voice sharper than I'd intended, "I need to tell you all something." Dozens of eyes turned. Claire's lips tightened, but she didn't move. "This dress," I continued, pointing, "was mine. My wedding dress. I donated it, thinking it would go to some young bride who couldn't afford her own. Instead, it landed here, on someone who knows exactly what it means to me." A ripple moved through the crowd. Kay placed her camera on the table, sliding the photos across the cloth for all to see. The picture of Claire in the church, side by side with the old company snapshot from 1992. Gasps, whispers. Claire's smile faltered for the first time. "She wasn't a stranger to me," I said, my throat tight. "She was part of my husband's life. Behind my back. While I raised our children, she took pieces of him. And now, years later, she wears my dress like a trophy." The silence was heavy, broken only by the creak of someone shifting in a pew. Claire straightened, her voice icy. "You think this humiliates me?" "Number. It humiliates you. You're still clinging to a past that's dead." But the room wasn't on her side. People avoided her gaze, whispered among themselves. Even Father Michael's face was grave. I took a deep breath. The past may be gone, but dignity isn't. You tried to take that from me. You won't. Claire's hands trembled against the lace. Then, without a word, she turned and strode out, the gown sweeping behind her. The door slammed, leaving only the echo. I stood there, exposed and shaking, but lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I wasn't the one shrinking in silence. Kay reached for my hand, squeezing it. "You did it," she whispered. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. "No, I finally told the truth." The room was still quiet, but it wasn't hostile. It was respectful. And as the prayer began, my shoulders loosened. The dress was gone, but I was still here, and I was free.